Great.
Oh,
Great.
love the apron, Kat.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Everyone's coming into the room right now. We'll get started here in just a minute. Let me finish. Oops, I didn't mean to turn off that camera. Let me finish getting set up here. In the meantime, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Kat from the Wild Alaskan Company recipe team, and I'm here from Brooklyn, New York. So if you want, tell me where you're in the chat, where you're tuning in from, and what your favorite species of wild Alaskan fish is this week. I ask this question every week, and every week for me, it changes. For me personally, I am really into the sablefish right now. So let me know what you're into too. Ooh, another New Yorker. Hi, New Yorker. All right, sometimes you just accidentally turn off devices that you don't mean to turn off, you know? You feel me out there? All right, let's do this. Let me also look at the chat. Yep, couple halibuts. And definitely, I always see scallops in the chat. They're great, aren't they? If you've had the weather vane scallops, or if you haven't, you definitely should try them at some point in your life because they're the best scallops in the world. So just give me a few minutes here. Oh, I love that view. That's always a good view, right? Let me get this set up. All right. I won't take you along for the ride with my phone here. Yeah, lingcod. Ooh, you never really see lingcod in the list here. We don't get the lingcod so often, so that's always a nice treat when we do get that in. All right, is this the view I want? Yes, it is. Great. Sorry, I gave you that really terrible nostril view for a moment. Yep, sablefish and scallops. Well, I'm glad some of you are saying you like salmon because that's what today's event's about. I'm gonna wait maybe just one more minute and get some of my notes up and see if I think we're slowing down on people entering the room. No problem if you're a little late, but we haven't really started yet, just chit-chatting. So let's see, here we go. So I will reintroduce myself here in just a moment once I close all of my windows here. So my name is Kat and I work for Wild Alaskan Company. I'm part of the recipe team. So all of you here today to have fun with me while I show you how to cook sockeye salmon strips. So they're a really fun cut of sockeye salmon that we offer. They come in strip form, as you see here. So I'm going to walk you through two super easy recipes today that transform them into flavorful bites of protein that you can pretty much use to top anything. Salads, instant ramen, rice bowls. You can serve it with eggs and bacon, or eggs and toast in the morning as like a little salmon bacon, or even just as a healthy snack if you just like to snack on salmon like I do. So before we get to the recipes, I just want to talk a little, just do a little housekeeping. First, if you want captions for this event, by all means, you can go to the bottom of your screen and it'll either say captions or more, depending on if you have your chat open, and click on captions. It'll transcribe everything that I'm saying, hopefully accurately. If you have any questions about anything along the way, if you don't mind putting it in the Q&A button, not the chat button, because that'll just help my team field the questions to me or answer them on their own. If you put it in the chat, it's not the end of the world, but try to put it in the Q&A if you can. It'll help us answer it more easily. So lastly, if you need to leave today before the event is over, don't worry, we'll send you a link in the next day or so that has the full recording of the event. And if you want to rewatch it, you'll be able to find it there too. So it also is going to be available on Facebook right after on our homepage. So yeah, no worries if you can only hang for a little bit. But I'm joined today by a few of my colleagues from the member experience team. These are the people who are going to be answering a lot of your questions today if they want to come onto camera to say hi and wave. So they're answering your questions today, tomorrow, basically anytime you really need any help with wild caught seafood. So just consider them your halibut hotline. And yeah, they're here to help me today. Hi, everybody. So two recipes that we're going to make today. The first one that is all over the headlines is salmon bacon. I'm going to be making it in an air fryer. If you don't have an air fryer, that's okay. I'll tell you an alternative way to make them, but I love making them in an air fryer. I'm also very curious how many of you have air fryers, if you want to, I don't know, say in the chat if you have one or not. And then the second recipe we're going to make is a sweet chili salmon strip that you can use for tacos or on a taco bowl. They're basically just like a nice, like spiced, warm, tasty treat that you can have on pretty much anything. So about the sockeye salmon strips, they're these thinly sliced skin-on cuts of sockeye that come in 6-ounce packs. 6-ounce packs. They're good for 1 to 2 servings, depending on how you like to prepare them, what you're serving them with, what your appetite is. So that's all of the salmon laid out, but they come pre-sliced for you in a pack like this. So that's why they're called salmon strips. It's really hard to cut salmon this thin on your own, even if you have a sharp knife. So that's why these are one of my favorite things to play with in the kitchen. So we'll stash this back in the freezer. What I think sockeye salmon strips are good for is anything, like I said, that you get to play around with, especially flavors. So think sauces, rubs, marinades. Definitely, I am like a sockeye strip air fryer. That's like the pinnacle of fun for me. I think you'll have a lot of fun cooking these too. So they're currently an exclusive member special that we're offering. Actually, as of today, we offer it from time to time throughout the year. So as of this very moment, we have the special running where you get 2 free packs of sockeye salmon strips when you buy one of my favorite types of crab, Dungeness crab, aka Dungies. I'll be cracking into these. Let me show you this platter of Dungies that I have here. So this is, oh, there we go. Dungeness crab. This is the whole pack that you get if you take advantage of the member special today. So you get those plus 2 free packs of sockeye strips. But I think we'll drop a link in the chat. We'll talk more about that later because we should get to cooking. So recipe number 1 is sockeye bacon. The first thing that we're cooking today is what I call sockeye bacon because they're going to become these really savory bites of protein that you can use as a healthy replacement for anything that you might normally put bacon on. I think it's equally addictive and satisfying. So think breakfast, BLTs, baked potato, wedge salads. They're just delicious about anywhere you can imagine. So is everyone not able to see my countertop? Let's see, I wonder why. Okay, everyone can see the countertop now. Awesome. That's good to know because we love technical difficulties and thank you for letting us know. So
actually, Kat, do you want to just show those crab one more time? Because we
couldn't
see
there
was a little something going on. So
let's crab beauty shot. So these are Dungeness crab legs and claws. They come pre-scored. I don't know if you can see that these like cracks in here. Those are actually done with a bandsaw because they're frozen from the time we get them to the time they get to your door. So they're cracked open, like they're very easy to crack into with your hands. You don't really need tools. Dungeness crabs are like pretty meaty for their size. They're super chunky. So they're like a little briny, a little sweet if you've never had them. They're West Coast crabs. So if you're on the East Coast, you might not have had these before, but they're amazing. So I'm going to put these back for now because we're going to go back to sockeye bacon. But oh yeah, a 4-year-old, they're so easy to open that a 4-year-old can crack them open. Thanks for adding that in the chat, Kristen. So, all right, sockeye bacon. The recipe for sockeye salmon bacon only has 4 ingredients. We've got white miso paste, smoked paprika. Let me show you here. Actually, I have a lot of little things here that I want to show you. So, I got white miso paste, smoked paprika, and some cooking oil, and then of course sockeye salmon strips, the 4th and final ingredient. So I also have, I'm going to turn this into like a salmon BLT later. So I have some bread and lettuce, tomato, mayo that I'll stack these into a proper sandwich after. So in terms of actual supplies that I'm using to make these, I did mention that I'm going to be making them in an air fryer, which I have sort of in the background there. I think you should be able to see it, that thing right here. I have a little mixing bowl. Actually, I'll just use this mixing bowl. And I have some paper towels. So those are all the things you need to make salmon bacon. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to preheat the air fryer to the highest setting. On my air fryer, it's 400. I'm not sure if it's different for other folks if you have that. If you're doing this in an oven, you would just preheat your oven to 400, or even you could probably go higher, like 425. So what I'm going to do is basically create a paste with the miso paste and the smoked paprika. So if you've never had smoked paprika before, has a very strong smoky flavor. And the reason I like working with this for salmon bacon is that it very much gives it like a savory smoked flavor, of course. So I'm just going to kind of mash these together with a little bit of oil. There you go. That should be good enough. This is about a teaspoon, a little more than a teaspoon of miso, and just like a quarter, it might have even been an eighth of a teaspoon of paprika. Let me double check. A quarter of a teaspoon of smoked paprika and a quarter of a teaspoon of oil. So that's what I'm just using to make a really simple paste. It's going to be a little lumpy here, but now we're going to smear this all over the salmon. I'm just going to use half of these because I'm cooking for one right now. To prep these, all I did was pat them dry with a paper towel. You can do this with a kitchen towel if you don't want to use paper towels. This is a really important step when you're cooking sockeye salmon strips, because there's so much surface area that moisture is able to cling to. And the more moisture you have on it, the less crispy it will be when you're cooking these in an air fryer or in an oven, or if you're doing something in a pan. You can also pan sear these really quickly. They cook so fast. So let me just set these aside for now. I'll be using those later. But what we have are salmon strips that have been patted dry. And now is the fun part where I just get to smear this all over the strips. Yeah, and then there should be a bacon recipe right in the link if you want to take a look at that. So I just want to make sure these have like a nice coating all around both sides. Salmon strips are super thin, so they're not terribly fragile, but they can be a little bit fragile. So just, go with the grain, or actually you're not really going with the grain because they're cut against the grain, but treat them nicely while you're doing this. You will probably need to wash your hands after because they're going to be super miso pasty and smoky. So, all right, I've got these all coated with miso paste, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to wash my hands really quickly. All right. I think the air fryer at this point is preheated enough for me to put these in here. So what I'm going to do is layer these into my air fryer basket in a single layer. So it's important that it's in a single layer because that's how you're going to get the best caramelization and the best crisp all around. When I say crisp, they're not going to be like bacon crispy because these are a lot leaner. But the miso paste has sort of these residual sugars in it that will caramelize and kind of become crusty. So single layer, if you're doing a full 6-ounce pack of these, depending on the size of your air fryer, you might need to do it in batches. And I have a small air fryer because I live in a small apartment. So I am doing half a pack of salmon strips in my air fryer basket. So I don't know if you can see what they look like in there, but single layer, these are going to go right into air fryer. And I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. Actually, let's do 4 minutes. I'm going to check them at 4 minutes. And if they need another minute, I'll let them cook a little bit more. So yes, I am also very hungry, even though I ate these earlier today. So yeah, 4 minutes in the air fryer, they're going to become almost like, the reason I like using these in making these in an air fryer is they almost become dehydrated and jerky like. So normally you don't want to cook salmon so that it's dry, but when you're cooking salmon bacon or the chili rub salmon strips that I'm going to make later, you actually, I think they're really, really nice to have like a drier, chewier texture, sort of like more meaty. And because they're so thin, it works really, really well. So if you've never, let's talk about miso paste. If you've never worked with miso paste before, it's one of my personal pantry staples. It pairs really well with seafood, especially with salmon and sable fish. If you've tried that, if you haven't tried sable fish, it's an add-on available anytime you want to add a treat to your next box. It's like a very rich skin-on fillet of whitefish that is like very easy to cook, super buttery. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent about sable fish, but there's no exact substitute for miso because it's such a particular ingredient. It's basically made out of fermented soybeans, and it has a really savory flavor. If you do end up buying a container for yourself, I think that you'll find yourself wondering why you've never cooked with it before. I might be biased because it's one of my favorite ingredients, but we've got tons of recipes on the blog that include miso paste. You'll get a lot of mileage out of it. It lasts forever in the fridge. So if you, I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say about miso. Yeah, I don't know. If you don't know where to buy it in the store, it's usually in the refrigerated section, but someone should be able to help you find it. It comes in like either a container or a tube. So anyway, I don't know if I did mention that the sockeye salmon strips have the skin left on them. Even if you're not a big fan of salmon skin, when you're cooking it this way, you won't even notice that it's part of the cut because it's such a small sliver. And anyway, a lot of the fats in sockeye are stored in the skin. So you're getting your nutrients from this bacon recipe. It's very much unlike other bacon recipes or just, other bacon. So that always makes me feel pretty good.
Kat, we did have a couple of questions come in if you have a second. A lot of people are asking, could you cut salmon fillets into strips yourself?
So technically you could, but it would be pretty difficult. These are cut with a band saw while the fish is frozen. So they're super thin. They're almost like thinner than sashimi. Like if you've ever had a fish crudo, they're like that thin. I would find it very difficult to do this on my own, in my own kitchen, and I have sharp knives. So, they're not going to be exactly like this particular product. And that's why I love when we have them available. I just like stock up because I know that I can't make these on my own. But you can cut salmon into strips. They're probably just going to be double or triple the size of these. And, these recipes are still going to be good, but it's not going to be quite the same texture as when you're, cutting these on your own.
That's really helpful. How much time did you say in the air fryer again, and at what temperature?
I have it at 400 degrees on my air fryer, which is the highest setting. And there's the bell. So that was 4 minutes or so. My air fryer actually doesn't have like a digital screen, so I don't know how exact it is when I'm turning the knob, but let me grab some tongs here. So if you just move this window. So this is what they're looking like right now in my air fryer. They feel like they're pretty hot in here. I might be able to cook these for another minute because I like when they're a little bit harder, like less like floppy, because that's when I know they're like really good. So I'm going to just pop these in for 1 more minute.
And if you don't have an air fryer, I'll let you just set the timer so you don't forget about them, which I do all the time when I put something in for an extra minute. But if you don't have an air fryer, how would you make this in your oven?
So I will actually be showing you after this how to make this in your own home with I'll show you the arrangement with the other sockeye strips that I have. Oh, that's not what I wanted to put there. this is. So what you would do is get a baking sheet, and if you have a wire rack that you can cook on, so typically it's a wire rack that doesn't have a nonstick coating, it's just like a plain wire rack. This will give you sort of a similar, I guess, circulation of heat as an air fryer, especially if you have a convection bake option on your oven. I don't, but it's not going to be quite as crispy or quite as stiff when it's done cooking, but it still works, and it keeps the heat going around all sides. So you have like a nice caramelization from, either the miso paste, or for the next recipe, this chili rub that we're going to make. So
would you actually be able to, maybe the cooked and the uncooked, like pull up one of the salmon strips? Because when they're flat, we just want to see how thin they are. You were talking about how thin they come up. It would be great to see that.
Let me transfer my bacon to the plate first. All right. So the sockeye bacon is that thin. It's basically, I'm trying to think, it's like a little, maybe the thickness of a quarter, like a very fat quarter. That's going to be very hard to do at home with a knife, but the skin right here, that's like all you get on each piece. And it's like actually caramelized and blistered because it was like crispy and hot in the air fryer. So, I would say, don't worry about the skin because it's really delicious. And it's nice and crunchy. So the sockeye strips, when they're uncooked, just to give you like a better view, that's like how thick they are. Maybe that's a little more clear. So yeah. Close up on the sockeye. All right, so we've got really delicious looking plate of salmon bacon right now. They're like nice and hard. Well, not hard, but they're not like flopping around anymore like raw fish. And I am going to load these onto a BLT. I keep wanting to call it a BLT, but there's no B. It's like an SBLT. So I have some nice ciabatta that I got at the market earlier. I'm going to smear on some mayo. Let's see, I have this like bottle of Japanese style mayo, which I love, Kewpie mayo. I don't know if anyone else is a Kewpie devotee, but it's really delicious. So let's do, actually, why am I doing one side? I'm going to put mayo on both sides. Let's do a little bit more of that. All right. Of course, if you don't like mayo, you don't need to put mayo on your BLT, but I happen to. So let's do some tomatoes first. Perfect. And should I do lettuce or bacon? Maybe lettuce next, just so you can see how beautiful these are. All right, and these are all going to be going on to my sandwich. Every piece except for one, because the chef gets to eat a piece of bacon anyway she wants to. All right. Oh my gosh, that is so good. I'm always very surprised at how good this is. So now we've got a really delicious salmon BLT, and it was just a super fast lunch, fresh ingredients. It was 5 minutes in the air fryer, maybe 5 minutes of prep, and just a minute more to assemble everything into a really delicious sandwich. So I'm not going to eat that right now because I'm still chewing that other piece of salmon bacon, but I'll just set it aside. So
we had a couple more questions pop up while you're just getting ready for the next yummy demo. That sandwich looks amazing. If you were going to cook those at 425, would you, how much time would you say? A little bit less?
If you're cooking in an oven, anytime you're sort of guessing on how to adjust a recipe from the oven to the air fryer or back, air fryers are always going to cook a little bit faster than an oven. So if you're cooking this bacon recipe in the oven, I would check on it at the six minute mark at 425. If it's not quite as caramelized as you like at that point. If it's still a little like flapping around, just leave it in the oven for another minute or two, and that should be plenty of time for it. You definitely don't want to leave it in the air fryer or the oven for more than 10 minutes, because there's the potential that it's going to burn. And you saw how thin they are. They're not going to take that long to cook. So check on it at the 6-minute mark if you're baking these in the oven. It's the exact same measurements. I know we don't have on the recipe a step-by-step for how to do it in the oven, but you can even just follow along and just add more time, even if it's at 400 degrees. So yeah, that's my advice for that. I tried it this morning just to make sure it works, and it does. Air fryer is better, but it's still delicious. So
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions before I move to recipe number 2?
Let's keep going and I'll butt in as needed, okay?
All right, great. So recipe number 2, we're gonna go in a completely different direction. We're gonna make sweet chili rubbed salmon. We're not gonna make it taco. We're gonna make a taco bowl today because I feel like having a taco bowl. So I'm gonna cook these sockeye salmon strips with a really easy chili rub that you can make with pantry staples that you have in your own kitchen. You probably have all of these ingredients already. So what we've got is some sugar, some chili powder, some cumin, a little bit of paprika that I forgot to measure out, garlic powder, black pepper, some salt, and then a little bit of cayenne. So I'm also going to use a little bit of oil as well. The supplies that we're using for this are, let me bring over my baking sheet with the wire rack again here and make sure I'm lined up on camera. So yes, like I said earlier, a baking sheet with a wire rack is ideal. If you don't have a wire rack, it's okay too. You can just do this on parchment paper, but it's going to really change the texture of it. The flavor is going to be there, but that nice sort of caramelized, meaty texture probably isn't going to be able to, I don't know the word, manifest. I feel like that's a big word for talking about salmon tacos. But right now I have my oven preheated already to 425 degrees. So I mentioned earlier, it's really important to pat the salmon dry. I've already done this, so they're pretty good to go at this point. Then what I'm going to do is, let me grab another plate before I mix anything up. I'm going to combine all of my ingredients. So I have, if you're doing a full 6 ounces of this, it's a tablespoon of sugar. You can use white sugar or, something that's like a little more raw. It doesn't really matter. Some chili powder, some ground cumin, a teaspoon of chili powder, teaspoon of ground cumin, a teaspoon of paprika, which I didn't measure out yet. There we go, teaspoon of paprika, that's about a teaspoon. Teaspoon of garlic powder, and what am I missing here? Let's do a pinch of cayenne, because I like things a little spicy. If you're not big on spice, you can always leave out cayenne out of any recipe, or just reduce the amount as you like. Some freshly ground black pepper, and let's do a pinch of salt too. So I'm just going to mix that up with my hand because it feels.
Pat, let's see those spices in the plate.
Yeah,
just a little off camera. There you go.
All right, so we got spices. Just want to mix them so it's nice and evenly distributed. So you got all of those ingredients that you can use to coat the sockeye. All right, great. That was fun. Next thing that you want to do is coat the sockeye salmon strips in a little bit of oil. Let's do that right here on the plate. So you can use extra virgin olive oil. You can just use a plain neutral oil like I'm doing today. It'll have a little bit of an olive oily flavor, or if you're using coconut oil, that's fine too. Just anything to give these a little bit of fat for the rub to cling to. So once those are coated, then you're going to do a little bit of this. Give them some flair. So do that for each piece. Doesn't have to be so precious. Every time I'm working with these, I feel like very much I'm making some sort of art where everything has to be lined up perfectly. And it's like, it takes forever when it really doesn't need to take forever. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but I like laying things out like perfectly and giving each piece its turn. So, all right, there, that looks pretty good. You can just press gently to make sure that this rub adheres to the sockeye strips. But you don't need to do anything like dip them in egg. Like they're ready to be flavored up. All right, so now I'm going to lay these on this rack one by one in a single layer again, so that we have nice heat, like places for the heat to circulate around. And if you need to do this in batches, hopefully you don't, because hopefully you have a baking sheet that's big enough to hold everything. But if you need to do it in batches or split it up onto a couple of different baking sheets, by all means, do not try to jam these in next to each other. They're still going to taste fine and they're going to cook fine, but they're just not going to give you the texture that you really are looking for. So, all right. So those are ready to go into the oven. Like I said, the oven has been preheated to 425. I'm going to put those on a middle shelf. And see, I'm going to keep my eye on the time. I'll check these in about, let's say 7 minutes, 3:38. Yeah, so I'll check them at 3:38. And then in the meantime, I mentioned that I'm going to make these into a taco bowl. So I realized right before, while I was prepping everything, that other than the marinade or the sauce or the dry rub, I'm pretty much making 2 completely different meals with the same ingredients. Other than this is rice here, of course, so there's no rice in a BLT, but what I do want to put on it is some lettuce, like crunchy, crispy gem lettuce that I got at the market. I'm gonna put some diced tomatoes. Oh, I meant to put some of this avocado on the BLT. Let me do that now because I love a BLT with avocado in it. But let me just do, I'm gonna do that. Pretend I remembered earlier. Yum. All right, so there's my BLT with avocado. And then I'm gonna lay the rest of that on here. The little lime wedge on the side. So whenever that sockeye salmon comes out of the oven, it's going to go right onto this bowl and be a really delicious, filling light lunch or dinner, or even breakfast if you have rice for breakfast in the morning. So I guess in the meantime, do we have any other questions about anything? Because I have about 5 minutes to chit chat until the sockeye salmon's done.
Yes, a couple of questions came in. Would you need to oil that wire rack that you put the salmon on top of?
I probably should have, or put some cooking spray on it, but the coating of dry rub plus the oil, I'm not that concerned about the salmon sticking to it. It should be able to come off pretty easily. There might be a couple like corners that stick, but yeah, if you are using a non-stick baking rack when you're baking, which is what you should be doing, feel free to give it like a light grease or just a spritz with some cooking spray. Thank you for pointing that out. I totally forgot.
No problem. Can everyone still hear? I just saw somebody say lost audio. I can hear you.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I think we can.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Amanda.
Another question, can you pan fry these salmon strips? And would you pan fry in these recipes, or would you suggest other recipes for pan frying?
So I haven't tried pan frying with these particular recipes yet. I would say no on the sweet chili rub, because the sugar will probably burn. When you're pan frying these, you want to do them over a medium-high heat, and they literally cook in like 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds max. So But even at those temperatures, sugar is going to burn. I wouldn't recommend that. With the miso paste, I actually have been wanting to try that for the salmon bacon, and that might be a really nice thing to add to the recipe when I get around to testing that out. So otherwise, we do have a few other recipes on the blog. Let me find one of them. So there's a recipe for, if you're okay with spice, for sweet and spicy salmon snacks. And these are actually done on the stovetop in a pan. I think they're cooked maybe two minutes aside for before they're done. And it basically turns into these like salmon candied pieces. I have been obsessed with these because they're very addictive. They do have an ingredient that you might not all have. They're made with gochujang, which is this Korean chili paste. Okay, I just dropped a link in the chat. They're made with gochujang, which is kind of like a smoky, slightly spicy Korean chili paste that is more and more available because people love cooking with it. You could also make it with sriracha. I'm not sure if I put that as an alternative on the recipe itself on the blog, but those are done in a pan, so you can absolutely cook them in a pan. Is my long answer to your very short question.
That sounds great. We also know when we first started offering these strips, our founder, Aaron Kallenberg, who's a third generation fisher person in Alaska, mentioned that he used to cook them up with his family, like very much the way you would cook up a skillet of bacon and eggs, instead salmon strips and eggs. So I've definitely done that in a cast iron or even a non-stick pan, and it's been delicious.
Yeah.
Another question that came in. Oh,
No, go ahead. I have a couple
Another
minutes.
question that came in. Once you've cooked the salmon strips, how long do they keep in the fridge?
So when you cook them, I haven't had to refrigerate them yet because I eat them all right away, but keep them in a covered container and they'll last in the fridge for up to 3 days. You know, they're not, even if they feel like salmon jerky, they're not technically salmon jerky. So they have the same sort of shelf life as any salmon that you cook. But again, I have not tried this because anytime I make this, it just goes immediately down the gullet. So
that has actually been my experience as well. One time I did make 2 packs at once. So I saved them in the fridge for about 3 days, but then I ended up adding them to my salads, to my breakfast. It kind of had a life of its own. All right. I'm just trying to see, can you make jerky out of these salmon strips?
yes, I have made, I don't have a dehydrator, but anything that, if you're following, we don't have a jerky recipe up on the blog, but any salmon that we offer or any fish that we offer, if there's a recipe you want to use, you can absolutely use these for that. Each recipe is going to be developed for a particular size of salmon, and even farm versus wild salmon, they will cook differently, so you'll have to make a lot of these adjustments on your own, knowing that it's going to cook much faster than maybe what the recipe was written for, or dehydrate much faster than what the recipe was written for. But I am completely behind any experiments that anyone wants to try. I think that these are really fun because you get to make your own seasoning blends or your own sort of sauces to put on them and kind of experiment with. I saw in the chat someone suggested doing Old Bay seasoning on these, and yes, definitely make Old Bay, crispy salmon bites. Let me pull these out of the oven because I think they're ready. And they are. So they are definitely ready. I can see they're like nice and, well, you can't actually see these because they're really hot baking sheet right now, but they're nice and crispy, nice and golden on the edges right here. So that makes it a little clear that that the salmon is getting caramelized. And you can see maybe when I held that up, it's not as stiff as when I cooked it in the air fryer. So they're a little more, there's more moisture left in them, but these are pretty much done. I'm going to let them cool because I think they'll like harden up as they sit. Yum. So let me set this aside so I don't accidentally burn myself. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to let these close. I'm going to put them right into my taco bowl. So these are going to go right on top of this empty space here. And these are really delicious. I love putting a little bit of sugar into any sort of dry rub, if that's something that you're able to eat, because it gives texture. The sugar, as I said, when it hits heat, it caramelizes and becomes this like really, really delicious texture that you're not going to get from, you know, just like using cumin and paprika. So it kind of like crystallizes as it cooks. And that is something that I want to eat when I'm cooking salmon. So hot stuff is in the sink. Great. Now I'm free. So yeah, this is this beautiful sockeye taco bowl. And you know, I'll just squeeze a little bit of lime juice over everything here. Oop. Slippery limes. And that's going to be really delicious. I'm actually going to take a bite because I owe you that. All right. Let's take a hot piece here. Get a little bit of avocado and a little tomato, a little lettuce. All right. That's really, really good. You could do this with quinoa. You can do this as just a salad. Put this into a wrap or on a tortilla. Anything you want pretty much, even like a tostada. Delicious. So that's that. 2 different meals, same product, almost the same ingredients other than like a different carb and different spices, but really, really fun to make and really delicious, most importantly. So I thank you for sticking through with that, and hopefully you'll be making one of these sometime soon. So any other questions about the food before I sort of close things out? I see a couple of questions about how to type in the chat. Well,
while you're okay. Yeah, I think we're okay. Questions about food.
Okay, awesome. So if you are a member of Wild Alaskan Company right now, and you want to try making either of these recipes at home, definitely do not miss out on the current member special that I mentioned earlier, where you get 2 free packs of sockeye salmon strips. So you could try one recipe with 1 pack and the other recipe with the other pack. And you do have to buy the delicious, I'll bring it out again because it is really delicious pack of Dungeness crab. If you've never had Dungies before, definitely a real treat. They're basically a party in a bag. So all you have to do is heat them up, crack them open, put them with a little bit of melted butter, and just get very messy. It's a lot of fun. If you're not a member yet, we've got a special offer for you. So if you become a member today and use the code LIVE25, that's LIVE 25, you'll get $25 off your first box of amazing fish and seafood from Wild Alaskan Company. So, and you get access to the member special that we're offering today for crab and sockeye salmon strips. So you can join on the website, the homepage, it's wildalaskancompany.com. If you have any questions, just reach out to one of the member experience team members. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Any other final thoughts before I wave goodbye to everybody here? Oh, great. Well, we have another event planned for next week that we've run a few times where I cover some of the basic building blocks for cooking. If you haven't been to that, it's definitely worth coming into. Otherwise, we'll have more programming with different specials that we have coming up that I'm really excited to share with you. So thank you again for your time, and I hope to see you in the future. Live wild. Thanks, everybody.